is they're trying to bring those phases don't necessarily go away, but those phases, they're trying to bring those phases closer together. So rather than it being a really manic phase where someone's like really excitable and they're talking really fast and they're cleaning everything and everything's this and everything's that and they're really creative, rather than being that, maybe it's a little less than that. And I've, had really interesting conversations with people who are like, I know someone who, is very artistic and they really struggle with this because they're really creative in that manic phase. So that can be where it's a situation where it's really hard for that person to want to take medication. And a lot of times people just don't want to take medication. Something like a severe disorder like bipolar or schizophrenia, that's something that can be really hard to maintain without medication. It's kind of something that probably needs a little bit of medication in order to help somebody because of those phases that come with it. And with schizophrenia, it's the voices, it's the thoughts, things like that. And then with with severe depressive disorder, that can be also one where it's like those lows are really low. And with bipolar too, you get those lows. Those lows are very depressive, they're very down there. It's hard for them to get out of bed, hard for them to engage in the world. And so that can be really hard to deal with. So it's understanding those dynamics and the associated behaviors, but also the medication piece as well. Because there may be side effects with medications. There are some medications that will make someone hear ringing in their ears. There are medications that will make people, I've had people who've described, I broke out in hives, or I've had this happen, or I've had that happen, or I've had it really make me irritable. It's just, to be aware of those things as well and to have those conversations about whether they're on medication or not. And this is between like you and a loved one. Obviously, it's kind of a violation to go do this at work. Like, are you on medication? That's probably not a good thing to do. And that's also something we'll talk about as well, is conversation, what's appropriate, how you say it. But if you're with a loved one, if you're in a relationship or your children or a close relative, these are conversations that I think are okay to have, because I think we need to be open about this. Because if we aren't open, then sometimes it's too late. And we've seen enough loss because of various reasons. Whether it's suicide, whether it's opioid abuse, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's just someone not taking care of themselves because of mental health, but then also they have all these other underlying health issues because they're not taking care of themselves. So it includes like diabetes as well, that we've had way too much loss. We need to have these conversations with each other. And it's okay to reach out to resources. And so then when we look at that, avoiding stigmas and demeaning communication, and I'm going to go a little into depth into each of these pieces, create boundaries and expectations of how you're treated. That's a big one, because sometimes we want to give in, and sometimes we enable, and sometimes we don't set those boundaries, and it leaves us walking away and losing who we are because we want to stay with that person, or because we want to support that person, or because we want to be there for that person. Also developing good communication skills, and we'll talk more about that as well. Making choices that may lead to improvement, and also finding support. So when we talked a little bit about the understanding the dynamic of the disease and associated behaviors, so I'm talking about the somatic, so even the physical symptoms. Recognizing that with anxiety can come, my stomach hurts all the time. That you may hear that from a child. When children say, my stomach hurts all the time, and it's like right before they have to go to school, or they just don't feel good. Or they keep saying, or they're constantly sick, but there's nothing wrong, that there may be something else going on, and being able to have that conversation with little ones and say, what is it really about? I really try to teach that body awareness in the sessions that I do. I often have people go with that feeling. We're so used to running away from those feelings and distracting ourselves, which can help in a moment. But let's go there. If you've got that pain in your neck, if you've got that pain in your belly, I really want you to focus on that and really think about what that's about. And I'll say that to people in session, and then they have to sit there for a minute, and that can be hard, sitting with yourself and recognizing, okay, what is this about? And I've had people say, and they just tell you what comes to mind. It's about, dealing with my mother-in-law, or dealing with my brother. My brother is really giving me a hard time with these things. So it's recognizing what that's about and talking through that and being able to work through that and finding solutions to that. But recognizing those pieces, that there are symptoms, but there's also those physical symptoms as well. And sometimes we ignore those, like when it comes down to anxiety. And we honestly, for as many people that I see, we have such a high rate of anxiety within our population, within our employee population. So it's having those moments where you're jittery and your heart's racing and you're shaky and you're just feeling kind of like you can't get the words out. That's anxiety. And whether it's situational or whether it's a long-term thing. But anxiety can be a result of, underlying trauma. It can be a result of what you're dealing with in your personal life. It can be a result of depression as well. It can be a result of PTSD, which is another really prevalent something we have in our community, a lot of. There are a lot of people who are really struggling with. And here's to kind of break that down too. When it comes down to PTSD, a lot of people are like, I have it, and it's kind of like you just live with it. Not true. You can find ways to work with it. You can find ways to get through it. You can find ways to get out of that dark place. And it doesn't always have to involve medication. So holding their space, that's really powerful. And I say that to people. I'm just gonna hold this space with you. I'm just gonna be here. Know that I'm here. I'm right here. I'm listening. Sometimes people just wanna be heard. Sometimes we aren't heard. So being able to just be there and hold this space. And I tell you, it's an amazing thing to be a person that can go through boxes of Kleenex in my office and just hold that space with someone who really needs to just get it out. It's pretty powerful. It's an amazing thing. And I had to laugh. We had, in our office in HR, we ran out of Kleenexes and we had like the really cheap, right? And I'm like, I knew that I was like, I am stopping to get Kleenexes on the way in because I cannot. Because I had that happen, and it was just like, I had someone who was using them, and it was just like completely dissolving, and I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so bad. So I knew I'm never using these Kleenexes again, and I had gone through another box, so I'm like, I gotta get more Kleenexes. It's like a definite thing that I keep in my office. I can't go without, because it happens. Sometimes you're the only one who's listening to them. So being able to hold that space with them, sometimes it's just about being there. And understanding that although it feels personal sometimes, it's not always a personal thing. So if they're snapping at you, or they're upset with you, or they're frustrated with you, if they're, sometimes there will be words, you never listen, you never are here for me, you never this, you never, and the blame is coming at you. Well, the first response you have is you want to put up the emotional guard, like, wait a minute, and you want to pick out all the things that they've done. So you want to load, the ammunition up, and you're like, okay, let's go at this. It's go time, but that's not what we need to do in situations like this. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that I'm not listening or I'm not here for you. I'm here right now, and I'm going to hold this space with you. That can be hard, and it's actually a very good diffusing tactic, because you can't fight those words. You're not here, you're not listening. I'm right here. Do you want me to just stay here, sit here? What would you like me to do? So kind of giving them control of what's going on. Works very well when you're struggling with people with addiction, because it's about control. It's about controlling their feelings and their emotions and what they're going through, and they want to, oftentimes the blame goes everywhere. So it's like, nobody ever helps me. No one ever listens to me. No one's ever helping me. Everyone gave up on me. I'm not giving up on you. What can I do to help? Something as simple as that. So I'm not explaining what I'm doing. I'm telling you I'm here. And you're seeing that I'm here. So it's kind of those, no, but I love you, and I this, and I that, and all these times I've tried to do this, and I've tried to do that, and remember that time. They don't want to talk about the failures. They want to talk about right now. Stay in the here and now with them. Hold that space. This is a big one. Avoiding stigmas and demeaning communication. Relearning how to communicate. Teasing versus mean-spiritedness. Now we know that we're good at teasing each other. And oftentimes, we say things that really don't hit somebody very well. The issues that somebody is having is not a character flaw. This is not because they're a bad person. You're not bipolar because you're a bad person, or you don't have a bipolar disorder because you are a bad person. Even with addiction, there is reason behind it. So it's not the character flaw, it's about what is going on underneath it all. So stereotyping or calling them by their disease. Something that really, really gets me is when people say, you're so bipolar, and she's just bipolar. I think I'm stunned when I hear people talk like that, because I'm like, really? Last time I checked, you couldn't diagnose. But, when it comes down to it, it's like we use it as a kind of, oh, she's crazy. Like she's just acting crazy. Well, what does that mean? What behaviors are you talking about that you're assuming this? Because I'm assuming that some of these behaviors are for a reason, or they're linked to something. So again, going back to that symptomatic piece, or the behaviors associated with it. When things escalate, do not use their illness as a weapon. I can't deal with you in your depression. I need to go. I cannot deal with you and your depression. Phrases to avoid. Stop acting crazy. Just let it go. Don't you think they would let it go if they could? I can't just wake up one day and just let it go. Wish I could. And that's what someone's going to respond with. Don't worry about it. I don't know why there's a question there, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. What's wrong with you? Well, you probably know what is going on, but making it be a that's what's wrong with them, again, a defect, a default. Just take your mind off of it. Quit your crying around. That is like one that we hear all the time, especially up this way. We say it to little ones, quit your crying around. And yeah, there's guilt. Some people are probably like, oh my God, I feel guilty. I say that to my... It's okay. It's something that we've been conditioned to do. We're used to responding that way. What is wrong? What is going on? Tell me. How can I help you? Sometimes it's because their little bodies are tired and frustrated, and they just need to just settle down and go close their eyes. So it seems, I'm kind of noticing that it seems like you're really tired. I'm really worried about you. Do you want to lay down? Well, then there's the no, and the fight to go along with that. But, is there something else that I can do to help? No, and sometimes they just need that little bit of hug, to kind of calm them down, and sometimes they just need to cry it out. It's okay. It's okay. And then you teach them, it's okay to cry like that. It's okay to let it all out. Don't hold it in. But then you kind of pick yourself back up, try to figure out, okay, I feel a little better. Do you feel better? Do you feel like you got it out of your system? Great. Okay, is there something you would like to talk about? What was it about? No, you don't want to talk about it? Okay, we're good. Toughen up. Or like the, you see, you're all hanging out at like the lake lot or whatever, and you see the little one fall and skin their knees, and everybody looks the other way because, oh, don't let him see ya. And then they start crying, and you're like, toughen up. It's okay. I mean, heck, if I fall and skin my knees, I'm gonna lay there for a second. I'm gonna eat this up because that really hurt. And I'm getting to the point in life where it does hurt when you fall and hit the ground. So we can tease each other, but when it gets to be like it's a mean-spiritedness, when it's really meant to demean somebody, that's different. So if, like, even going back to relearning how to communicate, just relearning how to rephrase some of those things. Calling someone by their disease, you know, you're always crying around, you're always depressed, you're always this. Well, then you're just telling them that there's no hope to this. You know, and it just does, and then it feels like they're isolated and they're alone because you don't want to even be in that space with them. And I've been there personally with loved ones that it's been hard to move past some of those dark places, but just holding that space and listening. And sometimes it is like, you know, let's get in the car, let's go for a ride. And not to take their mind off of it, but let's talk. And let them rant and rave, and we're going for a ride. And we'll talk about other pieces that go along with that kind of address, you know, being able to not necessarily distract, but maybe recenter yourself. We'll talk about pieces having to go with that as well. So, creating boundaries, this is a big one. And expectations of how you can expect to live. What if being with someone is causing you to lose yourself? What if you're losing who you are? So it can be really hard to live with someone that is dealing with a major depressive disorder. It can get really dark, and that space can be really hard to move out of, and it can drag you down. When does it become okay to say, I can't keep doing this? And maybe not telling them in that exact way, I can't live with this anymore. Maybe telling them, I'm losing myself in this. I really need to get some space because you're not taking initiative. Well, that can be hard because that you is that blame piece. But maybe I'm hoping that you would take the initiative to get some help. So that would be a better way to say it. Because sometimes we have people that don't want to get help. Oftentimes I run into people who it may be they're coming to therapy because they're dealing with all these situations at home, but the person they're dealing with, or the situation, the person they're dealing with doesn't think there's anything wrong. And it's like, well, did they do their own work as well? Well, no, because they know it's this. But it's like knowing that you're diabetic and never going back to the doctor. Not a smart thing, right? Because you have to maintain, and especially if you happen to lose maybe like 20 or 30 pounds and now your blood sugars are different, but you're still taking the same medications, that's not going to be good for your system. It's the same thing with mental health. You have to have that upkeep. You have to have that plan in place. It's a continued process. It doesn't just get better and go away. You have to maintain it. It can definitely be something that you're in recovery for. It's in remission. It's back here, but we still have to maintain those practices, those habits, those daily activities in order to keep ourselves up and not in this dark place. So that can be something that, even having a conversation with someone is about, because if they're not doing anything to take care of themselves and they're expecting you to make it better, they're expecting you to make the appointments, they're expecting you to take them to they're expecting you to do it all. That's enabling right there. If you're sitting and encouraging them, I'll help you do this, no, they need to make that phone call. It has to be about them choosing to feel better. And that's a real good phrase right there. At this point, you're choosing not to get better. I can be here with you. I can help, but I can't do it for you. What I want for you is to get better, but I see that you're not choosing to do some of the things to get there. Can I help you with that? Because then it puts that positive spin on there. Because even though you're kind of pointing that finger, you're still saying, can I help you with getting the phone number for you? Not picking up the phone and calling and doing all of the appointment making, but can I help you with that phone number? Can I help you with the resource? And that can be frustrating because we know that access to care can be a struggle sometimes. But sometimes I have people that call me just to see who can I talk to, and I'll try to give them something. I always try to give them something. Even if they're not an employee of the tribe, I try to give them something. So it's, here's a list of this. Let me know whatever else you need help with. But I'm not going to do it for you. I don't say it that way, but here's the list. Try these places. You know what? I have somebody over here that I think you could call and maybe you could get in with. And they do it. So that's giving people a little bit of hope. Having a safe place and a safe space. If you notice, if you're living with someone with like possibly bipolar disorder, that sometimes things will be really extremely clean, and then all of a sudden they'll go into that depressive mode and it's not so clean anymore. So that, again, with major depressive disorder, you might run into that too, where there ends up being piles of everything, and there ends up being like the pack ratting of things, and it ends up being a mess. If you're in that situation and you're living in that situation, you have to decide, is this a safe place or a safe space for me, for my kids, you know, even for this person that maybe you're dealing with, even for your loved one. And that can be hard to make those decisions and say, you know, I'm not sure that this is good for, you know, the kids. Because it can be really hard to, you know, maintain when you're all walking on eggshells. Even it comes down to maybe even as people get, you know, later in life, you know, there's that thought process of as people retire and almost there's that sense of purpose that gets lost when you retire, and hoping that people keep up on that. That's another stage too, because I find that people come to me with problems with their adult parents, that they're really struggling and trying to get them motivated or get them moving, or even after maybe they lost their significant other or their, you know, wife, husband, and they're really having a hard time getting back into things. That can be another place too where it's like I probably need to get some resources and involve people, because this is concerning, because now it's a safety issue. And if you have someone who's like stashing tons of magazines and newspapers and all kinds of stuff, and now they're just keeping everything and storing everything, that can be an issue. So kind of even looking at that and really thinking, don't compromise your safety. If you have someone that's maybe goes into these phases where they're very destructive or they're argumentative, and we're talking about physical safety, you have to consider that. I've heard some pretty nightmarish stories where people, when they've been in these manic phases, and what they do to their partner or to the people around them. And that's physical confrontation. So that's where you have these issues, or even very manipulative behavior. Maybe you're holding that space with them and they're manipulating you, and they want to, and when it comes down to, you know, having to call the authorities or having to get somebody involved, they flip their story because of where they are in their state of. I've heard stories like that, and that's very concerning. So it's like you have to decide, you know, whether you can do this or not, whether you can continue to do it, whether it's safe for you, whether it's safe for your children, whether it's safe for other family members, even in the workplace. Maybe you're working with someone that you're not quite sure, and you're kind of on eggshells, and you're like, oh, I maybe need to talk to somebody about this because this isn't good. So those concerns as well. And sometimes we'll deal with clients and trying to, again, all of the skills that I just taught you, all the communication skills, that works with people. I've had people on the other side of the desk tell me, well, you're not gonna, and you, and have me just hold that space with them, and then you just kind of see them melt. And it's just like they have nothing to go with. There's nothing that they can keep fighting with, because I've just taken away the ability to fight without them realizing that I just kind of nicely did that. So I'm like, I'm really sorry you feel frustrated. It sounds like you're really frustrated. It sounds like you've had a hard time getting help. What can I do for you? And it's kind of like, do you want something to drink, coffee, water, something? You want to have a seat? No, I'm da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or I've had people just say, I'm out of here, and then they just leave. And it's like, oh, okay. Come back if you need help, seriously. I've even had it on the phone where people have just gone in and just been very angry about what they're struggling with. And sometimes it's, I'm here to listen. I'm here to listen. I may not have all the answers, and it sounds like you're frustrated, but I'm here to listen. So sometimes just that means something to people. Developing good communication skills. So, using I statements. So like I was saying before, I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm concerned because you don't seem to be interested. And so if you are having a moment with like a significant other or your teenager or whoever you're dealing with, and you feel like they are completely, or even if it's a friend, and they're disconnecting, they're not in that space with you. You feel that they're somewhere else, you can't communicate with them, and they're not hearing you. It can be frustrating for you, and they may not even realize that this behavior is existing. So how do you tell them without saying, you don't listen to me, and you're not spending time with me, and you're not, all these things that they're not doing. You're not even, in the same room with us. You don't even sit down at dinner with us. You're checked out. We want to say those things. We want to give them a list of all these details so they realize that something's going on. And it's not just you, it's these things that they're doing. But again, pointing that finger is not going to be something that is effective. So how can you say it? I am concerned because you don't seem to be interested in sitting and watching TV with me anymore. Something as simple as that. I'm concerned because you don't seem to be interested in spending time together. So when you have people that go ahead and check out of a relationship, which is what happens when they're going through all of these emotional things and their mental state isn't good, then you can say these things. I'm feeling lonely because we haven't talked in a week. I'm feeling sad because you come home and you go right to the bedroom and go to bed. And it can be tough watching someone go through that. Have conversations about how they are doing, but put that within their control. I would like to check in and see how you are doing. Is that okay right now? Sometimes just popping in and saying, how are things going? How you doing? It's important to do things like that. So checking in on them. And oftentimes, like when you're feeling ignored or pushed aside, or it's, you're really feeling these things, they probably don't even realize that they're doing it. So again, we have to kind of put our feelings a little bit aside and just check in to make sure that they're in the right state of mind. Because they might at that point say, I don't want to talk about it. And then a response would be, let me know when you're ready, because I'm here. And I really am concerned. I feel like there are some things that we need to talk about. So let me know when that can happen. You can also add in a little bit of a deadline in there and say, I'd like that to happen within the next couple days, if that's okay. So then you give them the control of picking when to have this conversation, but you also let them know, I'm not going to go away. I'm going to check back in. And then you kind of check in at a later time and say, you ready to talk yet? Try to see it from their perspective. Like if someone's going and someone's going right to bed when they get home, or someone's, zoning out and they're just sitting listening to their music, and, what is that about? Sometimes it is that they just need to decompress. If there may be a very empathetic person, that they just might need that time to recharge, because it can be really hard. You know, if you're a person that's face to face to face. I mean, I'm looking at some of the people in here who are in fast-paced areas, even though, you know, we're kind of a slow-moving in some ways, but there are some pretty fast-paced service areas that a lot of people in this room are in. You know, you're working with people that you just don't know what you're going to get when they walk in. So it's like that, and you know, when you go home, even with your kids, and we'll talk a little bit about this when it comes to your wellness, is, you know, just being able to let them know that you need that space. Because when mom or dad or grandpa or grandma, you know, whoever's got the little ones, it can be too much when they're right here, and all they want is your physical attention and your love, and want to tell you about the day. I mean, my kiddos are older. You know, my youngest is 18, and I even let them know now, mom needs a minute. Because it was getting to the point, you know, when I get a text, you know, sometimes it's like, because I'm thinking the worst case scenario, and it's like, wow, this is really kind of driving me nuts, so I had to have that conversation. Just give me a minute. I got this figured out. Don't panic. Give me 15. Okay. So they got it after a certain point. You know, sometimes they go back into the habits of mom, 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 mom. And I'm like I said, they're older and they still do this, so it's kind of funny. Be clear and direct rather than hint. It's been a while since we watched a movie together. I miss doing that. Can we do that tonight? So rather than it be, you never spend time with me. Well, what does that mean? What does that time mean? What is it specifically that you want to do? Because time could be this big unknown. It could be, you know, just even as simple as cooking dinner together. And maybe that's what you really like to do. Maybe you look forward to that. And you're missing that. It's okay to say that you're missing that. Sometimes it's hard to admit that. You know, we're tough. We don't miss anything. We can survive all on our own without anybody ever. That's what we like to pretend, but in reality, we need each other. So if you're lacking connection with your kid, with your partner, with your friend, you're just being able to say, hey, you know, it's been a while since we were able to hang out and have dinner. You know, so then, you know, is there a time we can do that again? I know you're really busy and there's a lot going on with the kids. I'm hoping we can figure that out. Leaving that open again, and you kind of have to be ready for a little bit of rejection because it'll probably happen. But it's okay, you did your job in trying to ensure that you're being heard. Making choices that may lead to improvement, the support piece. Support is very, very important. Friendships. So ensuring that you have those friendships that maybe you can say, and you know, it's something that you might want to have that conversation about with friends. You know, I'm really going through a hard time. Do you have the space for this right now? How are things going with you? I'm kind of frustrated with, you know, my husband, or I'm frustrated with, you know, my kid. You know, sometimes you just have it with friends where you can just send a text and it be like full of, oh my gosh, he's annoying me because he did this and this and this and this. And then that friend can, you know, and maybe it just feels good just to send the text. You know, sometimes we're all busy and we don't get to respond to a text immediately, but the ability to at least get it out there to that important person is good. Therapy. This is not a personal plug for my position, but it is a personal plug for my position, anyway. I really do believe in therapy. I think when it comes down to being able to find a good provider or just even taking a chance, I think there is no more awesome honor than holding people's stories. And I hold a lot of stories. Doesn't mean I have to carry them with me every day, but a lot of that thought, that's why I do art. That's why I bead. That's why I make moccasins. That's why I have the store that I do. Because those are the places and spaces that I can go to do my self-care. And I also, you know, get to go to trainings and other things and have colleagues that I can, you know, talk to about, you know, I just want to give you not, you know, revealing people's identities, but kind of here's a case, I'd like to kind of throw this at you. What do you think? Do you think I handled this right? So even as a therapist, being able to have people that colleagues that I can say, you know, am I doing this right? But very important, again, like underneath therapy, that culture is healing, art is healing. Believe very much in that. I recently read one of my friends that is an art teacher. She actually said that in Europe that they're actually prescribing art as part of healing, which I'm like, oh, we should be doing that. So I really do believe in that, and we actually have a great lady in the front row who does art therapy. So I think it's a phenomenal thing, and I think it's, you know, something that when coupled with good talk therapy or even like techniques like EMDR, I do really, really love brain spotting and what brain spotting can do in pulling out what is called like the slivers that we deal with in life. Brain spotting is amazing, and it really helps to unlock some things and kind of get it out. It goes right at it, kind of like this. We're just going right at it. Let's go right at the issue. Let's stop skirting around stuff. We're good at that, making it nice. Let's just pretend and make it, you know, let's put pink frosting on it like a cupcake, and maybe it'll be better. Well, it doesn't get better, does it? Because underneath it still, you know, there's still some stuff going on. I think that when we go at things, you know, aggressively, we're proactive rather than reactive, we'll find that we're better. And then to understand that we're all capable of healing. We're all capable of getting better. That also being said, we all probably have some things we need to deal with. You know, I've done quite a bit of work, and you know, that can be, you know, as people, you know, seek therapy, you know, it can be like, well, you know, I'm confiding in somebody and I'm putting all my troubles in somebody's lap, and we also have our work to do. There's a reason why we come into this type of business. We want to help. We've been through it all. We've seen it all. And now we get to hear it all. But we, you know, I think it's really important that we look at therapy, culture, art, and then physical activity. You know, whatever that is. Even if that's just down to body awareness and breathing, taking that moment. I really like, I'm trying to remember the name of the guys. I think it's like those three guys or those guys. There's some really good meditation YouTube videos, and I'm really picky about my meditation videos because I really do not do well with an American accent. It has to be a British accent. It's kind of my thing. I don't know what it is. I really am a Downton Abbey fan. You know, I like to watch BBC, so it just must be, you know, I don't know, I just have a thing for British accents apparently. But I cannot watch meditation videos unless it's a British accent. And those guys do really good videos. And they'll do like 5-minute snippets. You guys can send me an email if you're interested. I can send you links to some of them, just little 5-minute pieces. Sit at your desk, and it can be really hard. I am not good at it, and I've tried multiple, and I keep trying. Meditation is not easy. To sit and be with yourself and not think about, what do I got to do next? I'm terrible at it. I'm awful with it. But you give me beads, or you give me, you know, moccasins that I can sit and work on, or, you know, whatever it is, sewing, whatever it is. And I can be with that and just be with that. But if you ask me to sit and just be with myself, it can be a struggle. It can be a struggle. And I think that's for all of us, because we're always used to, you know, we keep moving. Our minds keep moving. Dealing with your mental wellness. So this piece is about communicating your needs with your partner, family, friends, maybe even at work, and being honest. Now, you don't have to dump your entire life story on somebody, you know, if you're talking about the work setting, but it's also really evident from a certain standpoint, and we have a really hard time with this. We want to, you know, I talked a little bit about it before, you know, when we're talking about like supervision and you know, bosses and things like that, sometimes we get into a practice where we look at the person dealing with things And we know that they've probably maybe got a lot of drama going on in their life, and sometimes people invite that drama, and they don't know how to exist without that drama. Well, then that's where some help would come in. Then we can make that referral over, and maybe make that referral over sooner than later, and not the last-ditch effort. Even as a friend, you can refer. I think I've worked pretty hard at trying to create a program that people feel that they can, come and just, even if they call me on the phone, I'll chat with you for 45 minutes, even if you don't want to come down. I've had people just say, hey, can I pop in for a minute? And then they're there for like 45 minutes, and I, maybe don't see them again. That's fine. They're like, wow, this is great. Plus, I got a little ambiance going on in my little office. I've got some natural lighting and some plants and things like that. And I've got a great chair. So sometimes it can be, I just need to get in here for a few minutes and just talk, or just call me. I think I've done a decent job of kind of putting that out there, and then I've found that people are referring each other, or they're, in the community just coming and asking for me for resources if I am not able to see them because they're not an employee. So that is important, being able to communicate. Do you have those needs? Is it something else? I need you to just hold this space, just be here. I have, with my partner, with my husband, sometimes there are times where I just need to get it out, and I just need to talk, and I just need to be like, ah! And there was a point where he would really give me these suggestions and all these things, and I just get so frustrated because I didn't want the suggestions. And I was like, no, that's not what I need right now. So finally I was like, you know what? I just need you to listen. And he's like, okay. And then I'm just like, blah, 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 and just a hot mess and stuff like that. And I'm like, that felt good. I'm good. And I kind of need that like 15 minutes after I get home, just to be able to get it out and just spit it out. And he kind of gets that now. And then I'll be like, you know what? I need your feedback. So then I'll ask for the feedback. But it's important for that. And, even with the kids, Mom just needs you to listen right now. I just need to kind of talk about some of the frustrations I'm having. Because there will be points where they don't listen, and the dishes are still there, or all the forks in the house are missing, and you're wondering where they are, and you've told them a billion times, where the heck are these forks going? So, it's like, I got a couple chuckles with that, because, yeah, it does happen, especially with, older kids. It's like, where are the spoons? Where'd they all go? But just even having that conversation, I am really frustrated. Mom's frustrated because I keep asking for these things to get done and they're not getting done. I just need you to listen. I don't need you to answer. I just need you to listen. Mom's tired. I work a lot. I do all these things. I'm frustrated. Can you help me? Because sometimes we have to do it all. Some of us in the room really have a need to do it all. Someone important in my life told me once that I wasn't Wonder Woman. And I was like, want to bet? Because when I was little, they had underoos, and mine were Wonder Woman. But no, really, I had to really be like, so? It was kind of like, that was offensive to me, because I was used to handling it all. And so then how do I put that on someone else? How do I put some of that weight on someone else? We're not used to that. We don't have to carry it all. We don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes we don't have the answers. Sometimes we're just tired. I really would just like to go home and take a nap. Sometimes we need to say those things. That's what I want. I just want to take a nap. Not have to think about supper. That's a trigger point for me. When I get the question, what's for supper? Drives me insane. It's something that I'm like, when I see that text come through, and it's not my husband, it's my kids, and just one specific kid. But I'm just like, oh my gosh. I have a feeling you can feed yourself, because you're capable, and you took like cooking classes at school, and so it's like, but I let it get me there, instead of having the conversation of, you know what, this causes me a little bit of anxiety when you send me these texts. So I'm gonna let you know, after school, not a cool thing. Because I'm still at work and I'm probably in session, because usually my afternoons are booked, so not an okay thing for you're putting me in a place that I don't like. And I realize you don't realize you're doing that, but that's where I go. Yikes, sorry, Mom. Still get them once in a while, but I'm not necessarily triggered as bad. But that and the lack of support. So just, if we don't reach out, then you feel isolated. And if you are dealing with issues of depression or PTSD, or you're really trying to work through some stuff, or even if it's coming down to you're in recovery and worried about relapse, if we isolate ourselves, those symptoms are going to escalate. Toxic relationships and lack of understanding can increase symptoms. So if you're in a violent or an emotionally abusive relationship, please don't expect to get better. Please don't expect to be that you're strong enough to make that person better and you. And I run into that quite a bit. I run into situations where people are in a very violent relationship and there's nothing physical going on, that it's all mind games. And then, after that, they're wondering why they're in a deep, dark place and can't get out. And that's worrisome. Ask if they have time to hold space. So that's, again, do you have time? Can I use you for some support? I need someone to lean on. If you feel a little rejected, maybe that circle needs to look a little different, or maybe you need to reach out for that professional help piece. Wellness recovery. I like that word. Because I feel like wellness, when we talk about, instead of, again, labeling it mental health, I feel like mental wellness gives it a positive spin. It means that we have a little bit more control in it than our DNA or our trauma-filled background. When you talk about wellness, that means that you can aspire to be well. So when you're talking about recovery, when you think about recovery, you have to be actively engaged in that. That is an action. You are recovering. So we're used to saying recovery when it comes just down to substance abuse and use and those types of disorders. But like I said before, those are a result of a number of different things in your environment, your DNA, the historical trauma, and current traumas, or in your lifetime traumas. So there's a reason that these symptoms of substance use, come to surface. That's how we deal with things. Not very well. It's not a good coping mechanism at all. But if you look at wellness as something you can use as recovery, so you think, there are things that when you're actively in recovery that you have to continue to do. Like people who are in AODA recovery, they continue to do things like go to meetings, or they have a sponsor, or they have, maybe they're on a medically assisted program in order to help them. When it comes to wellness, you also have to be active in that. You have to continue those things. I feel great today, so I'm gonna skip doing, no, not a good idea at all. Don't get out of that routine. So what is part of your routine? What works for you? Really looking at what works. Again, you're not a bad person because you have a struggle with an illness. So really recognizing that. I've been in states where I know, and I've kind of shared in some of my other presentations, that I definitely had struggles. I was never diagnosed, and it's not like I was trying to go diagnose myself, but I had a pretty traumatic thing happen as a teacher, and I was in a bad place. It was not good. I couldn't leave my house. The results were definite signs of, I would say I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis after that event. It wasn't a good place to be. And the struggle I had in figuring out, I have to figure my way out of this. Well, I'm to the point now where, obviously there are days where I have, a little bit of anxiety, or sometimes things, get overwhelming, but that's kind of a norm when it comes down to, just the high-paced work environment, or what I'm doing when it comes down to working with people. It can be a little bit much, but I have to be aware of that. And when I'm getting into a certain place, I have to monitor that for myself. I have to be active in that. And I have to say, nope, got to kick myself in the butt. But being someone who basically was dealing with, all these symptoms of being startled, of being scared, of having flashbacks, all of these things after what occurred to me, I was like, boy, yeah, okay, this is what I'm going to school for, and this is not okay. Luckily enough, through some of the trainings that I've gone through, I've gotten to do my own work with other therapists, which has been kind of a little benefit because then I'm able to, heal and do my own things. Plus, I've been on my own active journey of healing, which includes all of those things. And I kind of feel it too, because being in school right now, in a doctoral program can be pretty rigorous. And so I have to take my moments, like I'm on a 2-week break, so I'm like, beads. So I get all excited, but there are times too where I know, okay, if I can get this homework finished early in the week and get all this stuff out of the way, I can have bead time. And that really does mean something to me. And I'll be all intent, and it's so funny because my husband will be talking to me and I'm all like in my beads, and I'm like, huh? Because I'm totally not listening. And I'm just like zoned. It's like a Zen place for me. So it's kind of just being aware that I'm not a bad person because I struggled with that. I'm not. It was not a good situation. I left teaching because of what happened to me. So, but being able to pick up and doing all these other things, I'm like, I know there was a different purpose for me. So having to recover, having to stay in that recovery mode of I can't go to that dark place again. And that's a little bit of my disclosure when it comes down to just kind of sharing that, I think it's okay to acknowledge that I've dealt with these things, that time put me into a very, very deep depressive state where I knew I could barely leave the house. I was terrified. So it's like just understanding the psychology behind it, knowing what's happening, and then just kind of working through it. And then just dealing with close ones that have issues with anxiety and knowing that I've got to talk them through it and work them through it, and that it can be overwhelming. Understanding that willpower isn't necessarily the key. There's a difference between willpower and that active road of willing your body to heal, but just willpower alone of I'm just going to always be in a positive state of mind. No, you're allowed to feel the things that you do. We all have bad days. A number of things can reduce symptoms. So what are the things that work for you? When it comes down to symptoms, what works for you? Is it calling a friend? Is it, I'm not prescribing cheese curds, but once in a while, a nice little dish of cheese curds can make you feel a little good. But again, moderation, patterns of occurrences and risks. When it comes down to it, when people deal with a high, so I'm thinking of like cycles of grief. That's definitely something that I see a lot of people for. We have had a lot of loss, just in this past few months with community members. So I see people, that are really struggling with a lot of this, and then also, what that means for them. Because we have a community that is dying at an early rate, and the reality of that. The longevity of our lifespan, being well in order to prevent. But when it comes down to it, if you look at your own patterns of occurrences, when is it most likely to happen? Is it when it's the fact that we don't get much sun? Because we are very much a population that is completely deprived of vitamin D, quite a bit. Like, you have blood work taken, your doctor will probably say you probably need to take some vitamin D because we don't get the sunshine all the time. Is it something along the lines of seasonal affect? That's real stuff. It's not fake. It's not made up. Think of how you feel when the sun's out, like even today, and now you're stuck in here. Everyone run outside and stand in the sun. But it's, cold as heck out there, but it's like great when the sun's out. Risks. Certain people, certain relationships, do those cause you risk? Knowing that if you see that certain text from a certain someone come through that's going to put you through the roof, do you really want to go there? Do you have to respond? You don't have to do anything. You can leave that unread. And I think that's, really powerful. You have control not to respond. Why do you have to explain? Why do you have to tell somebody what you're trying to do or accomplish? That's one thing I would say, let it go. If you don't want toxic people in your life, you don't even have to tell them you don't want them in your life. You don't have to explain why. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You owe yourself an explanation for why you want to keep playing the games. But that's really big, patterns of those occurrences and risks. If it's somebody else, or it's an environment, maybe it's your job, maybe every day you hate getting up and going to it. You have the power to change that, you really do. Granted, you may not want to. Maybe you hope that, whatever's causing you issue in the environment will go away, but that's not necessarily what's realistically going to happen. So you have the power to change that. What helps you to get back on track? Is it coming down to, I have some friends that I'm like, I'll say, I need a kick in the butt. I need you to tell me this and that and tell me I'm just overreacting or just hear me out. Just kind of who checks you in? How do you check you in too? And slacking equals lacking. So again, recovery is active. You have to work hard at it. You have to do everything you can to keep on that track. So if you give up on certain things and you're like, I'm feeling great, now I'm going to stop doing these things, not a good idea, because that's where the slippery slope. And if you know anything about, AODA and recovery, those are the things that they talk about as well, is that you have to stay active in those roles. Crisis plans. This is going to be in a little bit of I would say it can be described as emotional armor. This is going right at the issue. So whether this is you, whether this is someone you love, we talk around suicide. When someone says, I don't want to live anymore, we panic and run in circles around the issue, rather than just straight out have a conversation about it. We're very good at kind of putting the nice cupcake frosting on top of it. We need to go right at it. So, actively participating in your mental wellness again. Making sure that you're not getting into that deep, dark state. When it comes to you or a loved one, what do they need? If there is a crisis, what do they need? What is it that they need right now? What do you want me to do right now? If their answer is, I don't know, try to have them pull in. What is it you're noticing about yourself? What is occurring that you're upset about? And they may say, it's because this didn't go right, this didn't go right, this didn't go right, this didn't go right. So they just want to give up. Well, what can I do to help that situation? Is there anything I can do? Can I just even holding this space with you? What is the nature of the crisis, like I said? So just kind of what is this about? So even if it's you that's dealing with this, what is this crisis about? Because sometimes we're really good at building up these crises that really aren't crises. And I'm there. I used to be very good at it. Very good. Oh my God, now the whole day is going to be ruined forever and ever because this didn't go the way I needed to, and I forgot this and this. And now sometimes I just laugh it off like, good Lord, you're a hot mess. Because I'll, forget this, or I'll do that, or, everything. And I'm just like, gotta keep moving anyways. And sometimes we end up, putting ourselves in a bad place. Self-help and self-management. So again, if you are actively a part of that recovery, that wellness recovery process, you're actively managing. You have these coping skills in place. You have things that you lean on. Whether, and some people breathing works, some people breathing doesn't. Some people having that weekly check-in with a friend is what works. Sometimes it's just ensuring that certain things are in place. If you are a person that really has to have that power and control in your house and you've got everything laid out for the week and it all goes to heck because there's a 2-hour delay and now it's a crisis because there's a 2-hour delay, got to figure that out. How do I not think this is a crisis? So what would work in that? If you're thinking, oh my gosh, now I got it, and I'm going to be late to work, and I got to figure, and I got to... And we kind of put ourselves there. But if it's someone else that you're dealing with as well, how do you bring them down? How do you talk them off that ledge? Because it really is. It's like right now, this is a crisis. And not saying that it really isn't a crisis, but I'm saying we escalate things sometimes to where it's like, you know, where this other person maybe that you're dealing with escalates it, where you're thinking this isn't a crisis. But again, thinking of those communication skills, you don't say, oh, just get over it, you'll be fine. No, what do you need me to do? What can I help with? Thoughts of death. When people really struggle with mental wellness, a lot of times it can be, oh, I don't want to live anymore. I want to be here. If they're really stuck in that grief, I just want to go be with that person. That doesn't mean call 911. That means you hold that space with them, and I'm not asking you to do therapy, but I'm asking you to have that conversation. What do you mean by that? And those questions of, you know, do you have a plan? Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's like, no, I would never go there. I have my kids, I have my husband, I have my friends, I have my job, I have all these things that I love. Even that, sometimes when they're like, oh, I just wish I were dead, and you ask them, you know, you probe a little bit, they'll give you those answers. They'll snap themselves right out of it. Not saying that that works all the time. If there is an intent to harm, yeah, I think about it, I have a plan. Then that's the point that you say, you know, I'm wondering if we should go to the hospital. I think that would be a good idea because I'm concerned about you and I don't want you to harm yourself. We've had a lot of losses. I know I've had a lot of losses when it comes to that. I've had people that I know that are still struggling with those losses. You know, so to have those conversations means something. And even as service providers, you know, as people that work in the community, when those things come up, or with our teenagers, you know, we want them to find that hope. Sometimes it can feel really hopeless, especially in our current social environment. When it comes down to the climate of the country, it can be really hard to find that hope. But even sometimes when you say, do you intend to harm yourself? No, I don't mean that at all. I'm tired. I'm just tired. I just need to sleep, and I can't sleep. What can I do to help you with that? Can I help with the kids? Can I help do this? Can I help do that? So you can take that time? I want you to have that time to be able to sleep. I want you to feel safe. I'm worried about you. So having that real conversation. And who do I call? If it is something that they have an intent to do self-harm, then it usually is good to either call 911 or take them to the hospital, and then hope that everything kind of goes from there. And I'm seeing that, you know, the one thing that I absolutely think that it's a beautiful time to have these conversations is that so much is being thrown at mental wellness right now. It really is. When you look at funding and you look at there was something recently that came out that was federal that is looking towards training more people in this area. And it's like we're really at a time where that awareness is key. And so we can be a part of that process, whether it be with ourselves or with the people around us that we love or with the community, to be able to have this conversation and to take away those stigmas. That's very important. The support and connections. So again, self-awareness, body awareness, trauma, and the inability to focus on the body. Sometimes when people are very traumatized, they have a hard time. Everything's heightened, everything's emotional, that's where that anxiety is. So when you have that moment of, okay, I'm really frustrated with something, where am I noticing it? Sometimes you carry stress in different, I know I'm a person that I carry stress right here. I can feel it tighten right here. And then I can feel it in my arms. And I'm just like, ah. But it's how, okay, focus on that and, let it move through the body. What is that about? What am I stressed about? Recognize that. Right now, it's about ensuring that I'm doing good with time and that I'm engaging the room. And that's stressful for me. So it's just recognizing what that's about. Nature, sun, water, pets. Shawano Middle School just got a new therapy dog. And they had a picture of him on Facebook, and it was the cutest thing. They have one in the high school as well. I want a therapy dog. I have a dog, but I would really love a therapy dog. Wouldn't that be cool? Oneida has a therapy dog. They have a therapist with a therapy dog. I'm like, oh, dogs are great. Maybe not everybody's a dog person, but, cats. I don't know if their cats are really kind of geared towards building self-esteem. Dogs are, but I feel like cats are like, no, they don't. So I don't feel like they'd be there like in support of, maybe some cats, that's not stereotyping all cats. But, but I think, those things, having pets in your life or, just ensuring that you're drinking enough water, getting the sun, being one in nature. Think about how great it is, and this is such a thing up here, I know it is. Take a ride in the woods. Let's go take a ride in the woods. Take me for a ride. That's such an awesome feeling. Or even just if you're, outside and there's a great sunset. What a beautiful sunset can do. Just really engaging in nature and what that means, nurturing yourself with nature. Relaxation, we don't do that enough. I always call it, I don't remember, one of my kids, I can't remember which one, would call it be-lax instead of relax. And if you think about it, I love it because it's like be-lax, just chill. We don't allow ourselves enough time to chill. We don't allow ourselves the time to just decompress, think about how our day went. For a while, I was really into, with my iPad, those coloring things that you can just tap on and color. Oh, yeah, that's like a rabbit hole that I don't know if you can get out of because it's really cool app that you just tap. And that's great because we love technology. Although it's not good for sleep hygiene, you're supposed to shut off all the technology before you go to bed. And we're not good at that. Oftentimes we're falling asleep and the phone's falling on the face, or you're falling asleep with it next to your head because you're reading an article or checking out what's going on whatever social media app. But they have great coloring ones. And then they also have, I think Calm is one of them as well, that they have different apps that will go through breathing and will go through stuff. And I know that Lucas, little shout out to Lucas, just sent out something recently that we have an app associated with our wellness stuff. And he sent out some information on it. I've given the handout to people. I haven't necessarily gone in and tried it, which I should, just to kind of cruise it and see what's going on because they have some different things you can look at in videos. And so I'll have to, have him send out that information again. Or maybe I could just forward that information as well. But those are good ways to kind of keep tabs on how you're doing. Mood trackers are great. What's your mood? Maybe you have no idea what it is that, when it comes down to that body awareness, self-awareness, what triggers you, whether it's this time of year, maybe you don't know what it is. Maybe you think it's everything. So mood trackers can help you, and they can help you, and you can click on whether you're in a good mood at this time of day, what it is, and then just kind of you put in a little reflection. So maybe you don't even realize that it's every day you come to work and the weekend you're fine. Or maybe it's every day you come to work and a certain someone is at work, and when they're not there, you're fine. Or maybe it's the nights that you have class because school is a lot. Or maybe it's the nights that you have 50 places to be and have to get the kids each to 3 different sports, and it's causing you anxiety. So it's like we're often not good at looking at the fact that we are a close community, but we don't rely on each other for those things. Very rarely you hear about everyone in their ride shares. I'm like, this isn't a thing. Like we all just take our own truck and go to lunch and run home and do 50 errands and then come back and go right back to work, and you didn't even, maybe you ate, maybe you didn't, maybe you ran 50 errands during lunchtime. I know people are looking at each other like, yeah, that's me. Because I know a lot of you do it. It's like, no, lunch, chill. At least one day a week. You know, maybe even plan with the crew at work. Just let's sit and have lunch. Let's breathe. Let's actually, being a teacher for a number of years, I don't think I chewed food for like entire, school years. That or breathe, because you're just always on the go. So being aware of tracking that mood, because then it's like, and it's so funny because I usually don't leave for lunch. I'm usually kind of just doing whatever, and I watch some podcasts, and then I do this and that, and I kind of just piddle around during that lunchtime. Sometimes I'm working through it, but I try to take a few minutes at least, to check in with coworkers and stuff like that. But it's like the building's practically empty. Everybody's running out of the Gordon Dickey building. The whole parking lot is empty, and but it's all at noon. So then there's the traffic jam going down 4755, and everyone's going, the speed limit, because that's the way we do up here. But it's like this long line. You've just spent 15 minutes going to Shawano to do all these errands, and then get back in and spend another 15 to get behind the line of cars that are coming back. I'm like, this is a phenomenon. This I guess is the way we do things. Is it always healthy? No. Like I said, maybe taking one day and sitting down and actually having a meal with someone. Maybe not your partner, maybe someone at work, maybe someone in another department you don't get to check in on. Maybe a coworker you used to work with. Take time, because that's a real easy time to build it into your day. That's a little bit of self-care. It's great. And I know we're not always great at it, are we? We just kind of keep moving. But I do unintentionally do it when I come in and I have my food and I just kind of sit down and I kind of distract her and talk to her about stuff. So I kind of force her into that because I'm in her space. But, it's like it works, because sometimes you just got to get away. And she's still at the desk trying to work and stuff like that. And I'm like, so. But I'm trying to pull her into that better space. So that connections. This is a big one, because I know we're not huggers, but the endorphins that are released with hugs. And I'm not talking about like the bro bump where you just kind of, hey, man, what's up? I'm talking about like an actual deep hug. And this has been like a technique I use at home, and it's hilarious because my 18-year-old is 6'2", so he's a real big boy, real big boy. They're still my man cubs, always will be. And I have a 22-year-old, and he's smaller than the 6'2" one. But we practice hugs. And I'm talking like past the point of being comfortable hugs. Yeah, you know exactly what that is too. Because it's like, okay, that's good. No, we go in for the 30-second or more, let's hold this hug. That's holding space with someone, and it sure is uncomfortable when you first do it. But you know what it does for your body, and you know what it does for your limbic system, your nervous system. We connect with each other. Our nervous systems connect with each other. So even though you may not realize it, my energy is right with you. We connect on a daily basis, everyone you touch paths with. So sometimes you're like, woo, when you walk away from someone that has you a little frazzled, because you're like, oh my gosh, they're wound a little tight. And I invite that energy in, and I love it that they're chuckling, because they know exactly, it's like, yeah, okay. Yep, there are certain people that you just like, you walk away from and you're like, oh my God, I gotta get it off me because that was a little too much. Yeah, I had that come into my space, and I'm like, okay. So I'm using all of my energy to try to bring them down. Okay, we're gonna be in just like a chill space. So I'm a pretty chill person. But when you allow yourself to have that physical space with someone, that hug releases endorphins, oxytocin, all these great things. It's almost like with the petting a dog. You feel good. You feel good after you do that. Same with a hug, and especially when you're able to get past that 30-second point. I challenge you to do it. Even if it doesn't have to be with each other. We don't have to run around, work, hugging each other, especially if it's like a space where it's really not appropriate. But with your kids, with your significant other, try it. I was determined to do it with my kids because I really thought about it. And they talked about how hugging really decreases depression. And I was looking at my boys and thinking, they probably don't get enough hugs outside of me. And it made me really sad because I was like, they're awesome. My oldest bought me flowers today. He came home from his third shift job and had flowers, and then bought candy for his little brother. And I thought, this is such a loving environment. And oftentimes they drive me nuts, of course. But I thought, how thoughtful. And I thought, and I just kind of look at them and I'm thinking, I'm the only one that hugs them. But then my 18-year-old told me, oh no, I hug people at school all the time. And I'm thinking this big moose is running around just hugging everybody. And I'm like, but that's awesome because people need that. Teenagers don't get it enough, for sure. So something to think about. That's really important, that physical connection. Again, limbic, that nervous system, that connection we have with everybody else. Understanding that when we connect, what that energy is about. That's important. Self, being aware of your self-connection, being aware of you, your needs, what you need from your partner, from your family. Like I said, when it comes down to meditation, I'm a disaster. I'll be sitting there and they'll start and they'll say, take a deep breath. And now breathe out. And they'll start talking, now let your mind focus on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, was that my phone? Oh my gosh, these Fitbits, terrible, because they always pull you into somewhere else. Then you're thinking, what is it? What is it? What is it? Be aware of that. Be aware of that. Be aware of where your body, where it's taking you, too. Sometimes we go through the motions. Have you ever had, and I know I'm gonna get reaction from this, moments where you've driven home and you don't know how you got home? Because you were so in thought and this and that and things were going and you didn't even focus on this beautiful view. You didn't even focus on anything else. You were so focused on, oh my gosh, I gotta go do this and this and this and this and this and this. Real big thing when it comes down to really trying to look at your sense of self too, and if you are a person who really loves lists, make them little bitty lists each day. Don't make it a big list of everything you have to do for the week. Please don't do that. I had people who told me that they make this big list of everything that they need to do this week. And how do you feel on day one when you have not accomplished that list? Well, I've got so many more things to do on that list. But what did you accomplish on the list? Well, I accomplished the first 3 things. So why didn't day 1 include just those 3 things? Why do you have to have the whole list of what you haven't accomplished? Because now you're a failure and you can't get anything done. We set ourselves up for this sometimes. We really do. By this weekend, I gotta get this and this and this and this and this, and I've got all this laundry and I've got all this. Let's take it day by day. Let's take it minute by minute. Sometimes that's all we have. And then connections, community. This is an amazing community, resilient, been through a lot, but there's so many things going on in the community. And it doesn't matter if 2 people show up at an event, 2 people showed up. So you think about, like even last night, they had a little dance for the kiddos. Awesome. I bet you people showed up. Maybe it wasn't the crowd that they wanted, I don't know. But people showed up. So that connection with community. I think, wasn't Roundhouse last night too? Or is that tonight? Last night. So that too, there was like multiple things going on. There's always something going on. And so being able to connect with community and getting outside of the house and actually connecting with community. Good thing. Good thing to build resilience is to try things you haven't done before. So if you've never been to something in the community, or if you've never been to something specific, try it. That builds resilience. I'm not telling you to go skydive or anything like that, but try something you haven't done. Try something a little different. Do something that's just a little bit scary for you. That creates resilience, and that is part of healing. So we're at the point now where any discussion, questions, feedback, anything else, I'll probably be sending out, because we have a sign up, I'll probably be sending out a little survey, because I don't think I didn't put one together. I forgot to bring one. But I'll probably be sending one out for you that I like to just keep for feedback or, future events and things like that. But any questions, any feedback, anything else to discuss? No? Well, thank you for coming to the first Manam talk. No. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that everything that I shared with you is something that you can take back and apply to your own lives. And again, you can always reach me through email, phone call. I try to get back to people as quickly as possible in between a number of the different duties that I have. But I'm here, and even if it applies to people that aren't employees and you just want resources, I can help with that as well. Thank you. Sure.
Just a reminder that we are having another workshop on the 28th, so about 2 weeks from now. And again, that will be with Drew, and that one's focused on grief and wellness in the workplace. So, if you're reminded of that, feel free